I want to introduce the stars on this stage right here. This is Sam Kindrick, the author, Sam Kindrick, the longtime journalist. Now, he's been a newspaperman since the late 1950s. He attended school here. He was just telling me when it was one building on campus in the 50s. And he made his name writing about the offbeat characters before that was popular. You know, now everybody is writing about, you know, everything. But there was a time when, you know, newspapers were pretty straight-laced and pretty buttoned up. And Sam Kindrick, and he'll tell you in his own words, was writing about the people that are sometimes forgotten or ignored or never written about in a column called Offbeat. That was later turned into a book. But then in the early 70s, he kind of got crossways with the publisher. He kind of got fed up, and he became an early chronicler of what has become, you know, what we know now as the outlaw country movement. So back when it was called redneck rock, progressive country, cosmic cowboy music, whatever you want to call it, Sam was writing about it and hanging out with Willie Nelson and Augie Meyers and people like that. And he had a publication for more than 40 years. To his right, to your left, in the man in black, that's not Johnny Cash, that's Augie Meyers, the legendary Augie Meyers. A legendary musician, greatest claim to fame, I guess, with the Grammy-winning Texas Tornadoes, which he helped found, with the Sir Douglas Quintet, She's About a Mover, partners with Doug Somm. I mean, you know, him and Doug are rapped like this, and if Doug was the I don't know, the front man of the group, Augie was certainly the sound. That Vox organ was the sound of the Sir Douglas Quintet. So we're honored to have him here. He's been friends with Sam. He was often featured in Sam's Action magazine. I'll move it to this side of the stage. I have Sylvia Kirk, a singer-songwriter who is a legend in the region. And I hate to say how many years ago it was that I first saw you. Well, but I'll just say, not a century ago, but maybe half a century ago. But we go back that long. But she's one of the most wonderful singers and songwriters, and just a treasure, really. And to y'all's far left, to my far right, the man in the bright shirt, that's Claude Morgan, another legendary musician. He's played with everybody. Founder of the Buckboard Boogie Boys. Also a very sensitive songwriter and a person that has often been at the bedside as some of the greats are checking out and giving them comfort. So I'm honored to have Claude here. And when we were putting this together, you know, every time Sam would ask me, well, are we going to have Claude Morgan and Sylvia? You know, are we going to have some music? And I was trying to keep it a surprise. Finally, I just had to tell Sam, yes, we're going to have Sylvia, we're going to have Claude. So Claude has asked me to turn the show over to Sylvia. So we're going to start with a couple of songs, and then we'll get into the interview, okay? Sylvia Kirk.
Thank you. Such an honor to be here. Well, today I started loving you again. I'm right back where I've really always been. I got over you just long enough to let my heart expand. And then today I started loving you again. What a fool I was to think I could get by with only this was yet to come. Happy crying time for me, it just begun. What a fool I was to think I could get by with all these million tears I've cried. I should have known the worst was yet to come. Happy crying time for me, it just begun. 'Cause today I started loving you again. I'm right back where I've really always been. I got over you just long enough to let my heart expand. And then today I started loving you again. And then today I started loving you again. Thank you.
Oh my God.
That was beautiful, boys. Jeez, what a treat.
I was telling Sam, you don't need a stereo when you're in the middle of that. It's just incredible. You want to hear one more? Shall we hear a little more music? I'll turn it over to Claude Morgan.
All right. So, is it honestly your birthday?
Is it your birthday?
My actual birthday is the 10th.
Well,
Close enough.
This is close enough, yeah.
all right then. Well, I've got one little grievance with you,
You
Sam.
have to go
Just-
throw shit in the game.
What- I can't talk about most of the stuff that we were involved in, but I can talk about this. You know, when you buy merch, you need to have it made out of quality material, is what I'm thinking. And so I got this T-shirt from Sam many years ago, and man, it shrinks. Like every time I wash it, it just keeps shrinking. And so I'd like to know if I could trade it in on something a little larger. Thank you for the shirt and for all the years of your publishing and stuff. And I remember when I jumped ship on the Bugboard Band and went to the Blast, and I remember you came to our first gig and your eyes were like this big around. You came up and goes, "What am I going to do with this?" "What are you doing, Claude?" And I go, "I don't know." But I do appreciate you, Sam, so much. Here we go. You might relate to this song. Well, this old black crow sitting on a fence, trying hard to look intelligent. Silly old crow, you know he acts like a fool, but he's lost his soul. He just don't know that yet. Hey, old black crow, nobody likes you. You got a nasty squawk. You got a bad attitude. Mean old crow. You got a one-way heart. He only does what he wants to. He's a mean old crow. Lies to his mother, steals from his brothers, just for grins. He's a nasty old crow. Cusses his neighbors, even birds of a feather do not call him a friend. So he went and got himself some bright red spots. And he glued them on his wings. Now he's looking really sharp on the outside, but on the inside, man, he still stinks. He's an old black crow. Don't want to hear about Jesus. No, he's way too cool for some cat like that. Now, he don't want to know God really loves him just the way that he is and right where he's at. Don't need forgiveness. Don't even think about salvation. Maybe he should, but he ain't ready yet. See, he's flying high. Still, there's something above him. Someday, he may have to deal with that. Now, this old black crow, whoo, he do look familiar. You know, he reminds me of someone I used to know. And I thank God daily, 'cause I can clearly remember when I used to be that old black crow.
Claude Morgan. Michael, can we get a little more monitor, please? We're going to start the interview here. And I think you can already tell a little bit of the personality of some of these guys, right? So, you know, Sam's got his wife Sharon here and his daughters. Augie, you've got your wife Sarah here. Anything? Well, Sarah, while I've got them here, anything they need to do right now while you got them in one place? All right. Sam, first question. You turn 90 in a week. Any reflections on that?
On the 10th.
I know, but you made it this far. Give us what are you thinking about as you're turning 90?
I can't hardly believe it.
What about it? No.
My story really is a recovery story. Everybody knows it, you know. But I went through some stuff that I wasn't too proud of, and got some rough times. And but now I have a recovery story, and I may be the only convicted felon ever inducted into the Wittliff Collection, as far as I know.
I don't think so. Well, I hope you can hear me, Sam, okay, here. One of the things with Action Magazine, which was a publication that was in the San Antonio regional area, very much a precursor to what we know as like the Austin Chronicle or the San Antonio Current, definitely an alternative type of music and just community type newspaper. It was quite thick. It was really great. the motto of Action Magazine was everybody is somebody in action. They covered all, he was friends with Willie Nelson. There were stories about Willie in there and, Dolly Parton, Johnny Bush. He was covering, reporting on Banditos. But there was always a section in there that said that everybody is somebody in action. How did you come up with that? You've always said you kind of focused not on the winners of society.
The losers. Everybody writes about the winners. That was before Willie was a big star, and I started writing about the guys that weren't getting as much ink. And I talked to Willie about it when I started the magazine, and he said, "Write about the little guy. Write about the bum that can't get up in front of on the stage." So everybody's got a story, and that was what I did. But along the way, I ran into some superstars. They were going to be superstars. They were superstars there. This one right here is a Texas superstar that has no equal anywhere. He's the San Antonio sound, the Cajunto sound, and nobody could put it together like Augie Meyers.
So Augie, how did you meet Sam? Do you recall or any of those early days of how you first kind of crossed paths with this guy?
Well, one time I used to live in Bulverde. I don't think Sam knows this story. And I'm coming into town on 281, and I see this blue truck wobbling all over the highway. And I said, "Man, that guy's drunk." Anyway, Reed's Red Derby. 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd be drinking coffee. Now, anyway, I'm coming into town, and in Hollywood Park on 281, there's a police station. So I knew the policeman there, and he was getting in his car, and I pulled up. I said, "Man, there's a drunk guy driving down the highway." He said, "Well, what kind of car?" I said, "Blue truck." So he backed out real fast and took off. The time I get back on the highway, he had Sam pulled over. And I didn't know it was Sam. And I said, "Man, he got him." And I suddenly up Sam with handcuffs looking like this. I don't think I ever told you that story, did I? But I've known Sam probably close to 50 years. But we used to meet at Red Derbies, and he'd be sitting there like with his head down, but he'd be asking me questions. And I'm answering them. In the next month in Action Magazine, everything I said was word for word. How do he remember that stuff? I don't know. But Sam is one of the people that tells it like it is, says it like it is. And that's what I love about him. He's 90 years old. I'm going to be 85, and I don't think I'm going to live that long. And I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens, But I'm glad to be here with this guy today, But I got to be honest, I'm glad to be anywhere today. But I'm glad to be with this guy here today and honor him. He's been a legend in San Antonio. There's been a lot of writers come through San Antonio. A lot of them are gone now, but he's still around. And this guy, I don't know, God knows what he's up to. That's all I can say, and it's all good.
Let me ask Sylvia. Because, for any musician out there, or performance artist, or visual artist, poet, writer, you know how much it means when you do get into like the Austin Chronicle, or the Standard, or into the Current, or into Buddy Magazine. There were lots of regional sort of music publications. It's only rock and roll. But Sylvia, how important was it to get noticed, or in those early days to have someone? You were telling me a little bit about what Action Magazine meant to you.
Well, yeah, I would have never known. Nobody would have ever known where I was playing, for one thing. And we didn't know where anybody else was playing because we're all so busy. Such a great time in everybody's life, the 70s and early 80s, and I just like we found places to play because Action was advertising, different places to play for one thing, and It was everything. It was everything for me.
You're reminding me of something. I just brought out just a couple of the boxes, and some of them are much larger. It's a collection of more than 30 boxes. It's quite voluminous. It's more than 4,800 photographs of the artists from that time. And I'm talking big names and small names and everything in between. But you're reminding me, one of the things, this has been an effort, again, headed by all of the Wittliff, but, under Katie Salzman's guidance and with the digitization efforts, we are finding that a lot of times it is those calendars that Sam published, those calendars that you had in Action Magazine that I'm sure were like sponsors, right? They had to pay to get that, the calendars. But it's unbelievable, all the people that we consider music heroes today playing all these little places, and that's what researchers from around the country are often most interested in. We're digitizing right now Soap Creek Saloon, and the calendars, again, they have a lot of information on there, and a lot of times what we're doing here at the Wittliff, or we're catering to people that are on the trail. When you're a researcher, you're like on a cold case, and you're trying to find a clue, and sometimes, you may know about Augie Meyers, but you may not know about this other name that pops up whenever he's around, and people go tracking those folks down. Now, as you get a sense of all this, Sam was quite a hellraiser back in the day, right? Quite a little hellion. It didn't just start when he was what they call a gonzo outlaw country reporter. He was that way as a little kid, a little bit, pretty tough. He was, he can tell you in his own words, but when he was born, now nearly 90 years ago, his father passed away a few months afterwards. So he was raised by his mother, who was a school teacher, who had gone to school here when it was a women's college, was a poet in her own right, and quite a God-fearing woman. And Sam, one of the beauties of preserving his archives is that we have his mom's poetry and writing, and he didn't even know that she had a few times. Much of her stuff was very, very pious, very, very religious. But there were times when she wrote about the young baby that she was having to care for by herself. And she also talked about his father. And one of the scenes that she sets in one of her writings is his dad died after a short illness, is that he went, when he was sick in the hospital, that he was singing a religious spiritual over and over again. And Michael, if you don't mind playing me, I don't know if Sam has heard this. His father was singing, "Going to shout all over God's heaven." It was made famous, but not really famous, but it was at least recorded by Louis Armstrong, and in the 1938, but that would have been after his father died. He must have heard the original recording, which was recorded in 1909 by the Fisk Jubilee Singers, and we actually found it. And if you could play a little bit of this, Michael, I wanted you to get a sense of this before you talk about your mom and stuff.
I gotta cross, you gotta cross, all the God children gotta cross. When I get to heaven, gonna lay down my cross, gonna shout all over God's heaven, heaven, heaven. Everybody talking about heaven, ain't going there, heaven, heaven, gonna shout all over God's heaven. I got a crown, you got a crown, all the God children got a crown. When I get to heaven, gonna put on my crown, gonna shout all over God's heaven, heaven, heaven. Everybody talking about heaven, ain't going there, heaven, heaven, going shout all over God's heaven. I got a roll, you got a roll.
But anyway, the reason I played that and looked it up is that, Sam was pretty rebellious. Had his dad lived, you might have been under the guide of two very God-fearing people, might have gone down a different path. Tell me a little what you think about that and about the relationship with your mom.
I wouldn't have made anything if it hadn't been for my mom. She put me through this college and supported me in many ways, except we didn't see eye to eye on some things. She was very religious, very anti-alcohol, and I turned out to be a drunk. And that's all part of my story. But the very first ad that I had that started Action Magazine, I'd been fired from the Express News, and so I went to Harry Jersey, the president of Lone Star Beer, and I told him that I was going to write about these people like Jerry Jeff Walker and Janis Joplin and these outlaw people. And I said, I don't have any money, but I want to sell you the back cover to a non-existent magazine. And I had just been fired from the Express News, and Harry Jersey didn't care for the Express News, so he gave me $1,000 and said, you're off and running. That's how the magazine got started.
And your mom was an athlete, and you had a lot of like pets. You had wild animals as
Oh,
pets.
yeah. My mom taught me how to swim when I was 6 years old. She took me out in the South Llano River at the Flat Rock Crossing right below Junction, Texas, and pushed me out into this current. And when she saw that I wasn't going to sink, she just stepped back and I was swimming.
And one of the reasons I'm asking about this, Augie, I want you to talk a little bit. We were sitting around him and Sarah's dining room table, and when as a young man, as a young boy, you contracted polio, and you were tell that story about the piano and the rope around your leg, and learning about.
Well, I got polio I forgot I had this. When I was 2 years old, I got polio out at my grandma's house in St. Hedwig. And so Mama let me stay there with them I didn't walk till I was almost 11. I had polio on my legs and my left hand. It still was messed up. Anyway, Grandpa used to take me in his wagon about a half a mile down the road to this black guy that was worked with my grandfather, and he was a piano player in their church. And to get there, my grandfather tied me a rope around my leg and a rope around the piano leg and gave me a pie pan with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a jar of water. And that's where I guess listen, my grandmother spoke Polish, so did my grandfather. And until I was 8 or 9, I spoke nothing but Polish. And all I know today is all the dirty words, so I'm not going to tell you all that. But anyway, I learned them from my grandfather. But I would sit there and hear, I remember the guy's name, Henry Guerra, in the morning would talk about the farm report. And my grandmother said, yes, in Madeira, the people are drunk. And I said, what do you mean? She said, they're playing 5:30 in the morning. They're singing and playing. They must be drunk. And but I would listen to the music. And then when that grandfather took me to this guy's house and tied my leg to the piano in there, all day long, because they were working in the fields. My grandfather had close to 500 acres back then. And I learned to play the piano by ear.
But tied to the piano.
Tied to the piano. And I still got that rope. It's only 6 feet long, so I couldn't go very far from the piano. But I learned to play that, and then when I got older, my parents bought me a piano. But my dad never got to hear me play piano or sing or in a band or nothing. He died real young. But he always listened to Spanish music, and he used to tell me, boy, you play that kind of music, you're going to go somewhere. And not till 1986 that I wrote Hey Baby, Que Paso, and became, well, I sold close to over 7 million records. But I don't know. That's a story.
Yeah,
and I'm sticking with it.
I mean, it's just a reminder too that Sam and Augie. I mean, Augie's nearly a decade younger than Sam, but I mean, it's a time when Texas is a lot more rural. It's a lot more poor. It's a lot more wide open spaces. It's not instant. We don't have cell phones. We don't have. You're lucky if you have a phonograph in the home. If you do, it's playing 78s, and you had to have some money to be able to even afford that. Claude, I want to ask you, because Augie's bringing up the different kinds of music, and Claude Morgan and the Buckboard Boogie Boys are part of that rise of. They rode that wave of progressive country and outlaw country, what we call outlaw country today. Just countrified music, much like Frida and the Fire Dogs in Austin, if you're familiar with that. There's so many groups that are part of the history. It's not just all Willie Nelson or Waylon. You have all the groups that make up the real backbone of it. Tell me a little bit, like when you first got to San Antonio, and what was turning you on, and how did you get into that sound?
Well, in Devine, Texas, where I grew up, and you had the little Kono and KTSA radio stations, and they were playing mostly San Antonio music at that time. It was, Rudy and the Reno Bops, and Sonny Ozuna, and a few other, Denny Esba on the radio, and we had a little malt shop there that had a jukebox in it, but we didn't get the popular records for a couple of months till they were already on the radio. In order for me to learn any of those songs, I had to ride my bicycle to Natalia, to the malt shop there, because their jukebox was always up to date. So I'd go there and learn Willie Bully and whatever was playing at the time. And that's kind of how I got started. But as far as the buckboard goes, I actually got started in your little, what was the name? J. Alfred Proof Rocks, wasn't it? No, that was the Roth Baron. Yeah, but J. Alfred Proof Rocks was the first place that the buckboard got together. And Muldoon's Saloon, but the Bijou Club. One of the greatest things about Sam's publication was that he made it affordable for artists to be able to put their calendar in the paper. So if you got it in on time, you could pay a little bit of money, and he would publish your calendar. And it was wonderful, because you could, not only because you could remember where you were playing. There was a plus there, but also because you could see where your friends were playing, and you knew when you had a night off, you knew where Sylvia and Cecil were playing, and you knew where Augie was playing, and you knew where everybody was playing. And that was a great thing you did there, Sam, was to make that available to the artists, not just the people that had the big money to spend, but for artists as Stardust and all those bands that were playing at the time could afford to get a little ad in the paper and look like big time. Yeah, it was wonderful.
And let me give a little shout out to the music journalists that continue that tradition. One of them is here, Bill Baird, who wrote a hell of a story on Sam in the book in the San Antonio Current, and he writes for different publications. My good friend Deborah Martin, who did an article as well about the book, and we're always open to more publicity about it. So the title of the book is Outlaw Country Reporter, Misfits, Madams, and Hangin' with Willie. Let's talk a little bit about Hangin' with Willie. The story I love, Sam, and tell it in completion. He was one of the first people to hear Red-Headed Stranger. He heard it on a cassette behind some dive bar, right, in a truck with Willie.
Behind the Foxy Lady Saloon in Willie's car.
Yeah, well,
and he had the whole album on tape, and he said, "I want you to listen to this. It's another one of the concept albums. He did Phases and Stages and several others." And I said, "I don't think it'll sell." And he said, "That's what they said in Nashville too." It went platinum. So shows you how much I know about music. I never claimed to be an expert on music.
Right. So, you pick up, the Austin Chronicle, San Antonio Current, any daily paper that writes about music. A lot of times there are columns or articles by, music critics. The music, that's their job. Sam was unusual in that he never tried to be like Ben Fong Torres or Dave Marsh or any of the music journalists that were reviewing records. You were writing about the characters making those records. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. I wrote about the musicians.
Right.
I never did. I never imagined that I had the quality or the right to sit in judgment on anybody else's art or music or anything else. I let them play the music, and and I'll just record what people are saying about it. And that's basically all I've ever done.
Now, how did you get to meet Willie Nelson? I mean, how did you become friends with the guy?
Sitting under a mesquite tree smoking a marijuana cigarette right outside a floor store, and Larry Trader introduced us. The late Larry Trader.
I mean, and how'd you hit it off? I mean, if you're not a music critic, what drew you to his music or his personality?
The lyrics. I heard the lyrics. I heard him doing stuff like Me and Paul, Funny How Time Slips Away. I knew this guy had something. I mean, immediately. And I asked him, I said, does anybody else, he was touring around Texas then, does anybody else writing about you? He said, I have people like you in pockets. Over here, maybe in one other little town, there'll be a radio station here and there. But he was no big star then. But he was playing every Saturday night out at Floors because he had gambling debts to pay off, and he'd borrow money from old man John T., and then he'd come out about that to Floors and pay him off. That's how he got, and he played out there every Saturday, I think, when I first met him.
And Sylvia, so did it feel like something was changing? I mean, we're talking, now Willie is a phenomenon, right? I mean, we take him, he's like Cher, one name. We say Willie, you know who we're talking about. But, did it feel like the times were changing, this music, the whole vibe out of Austin, the drugstore cowboys, Dub has told me how, the first time he saw him, there was a couple of people in the audience at floor, then a few more, Could you feel something like that building, not only for Willie, but just on the music scene in general?
Well,
I mean, what did you think of that, of what was being called, the new Texas sound, the Austin sound?
I loved it. I went to one of his first 4th of July things, and it was like amazing. There's a picture of me. Somebody found a picture of me doing what I don't usually do. And I was like, what? What? But, his 4th of July, or he played somewhere around Specs, I think he had a big thing. Way in the 70s, it was so cool. But, yeah, I've been a fan ever since,
So how about you, Augie? How did you cross paths with Willie, or how did you first hear about him or play with him? You played with everybody.
He would play at Floor's Country Store, and I would too. And me and Doug would play there back in those days. But he'd say he had a motorhome back then, and sometimes that motorhome, he didn't know where he was going to park it that night. I said, I have a place in Boverde. He'd come out and get a 100-foot extension cord and get electricity and stay overnight. And I had a bass player back in them days, B. Spears, I think you remember him. And Willie said one time, he said, I sure like your bass player. And 2 weeks later, my bass player called me and said, I'm joining Willie. That's a late bass Spears now. He's gone. But I went to school with his brothers, and I knew B when he was like 8 years old. So I met Willie then. And then we did a couple of movies over the years. I don't even, I think, what the names of them anymore.
So, as you all know, Augie is recorded with so many people, but Bob Dylan being one of them. When you mentioned the road and Willie, can you give us just a thumbnail, like a little brief sketch? What if you had to compare Willie and Bob Dylan, their personalities? What's the difference between those two guys? I mean, both geniuses, both great songwriters, but what's the difference between those two men?
Willie smoked more weed than Bob did. No, but they both smoked weed back in those days, But Bob was more intellectual. I mean, what he was doing things. He did. I got a bunch of sketches, Augie. We did several albums together. And when me and Doug had the Sir Douglas Quintet, all of a sudden in the paper we read that Bob Dylan, there's a group he really likes called Sir Douglas Quintet, best garage band he ever heard. And so the first time we met Bob in L.A., we asked him, why'd you put us down and call us a garage band, the best garage band? He said, that's the best I could think of back then, And we all become friends back in those days. But I did 2 albums with him, and he always called the Vox organ the magic box. He said, bring your magic box.
So Sam, okay, so you meet Willie, you're meeting all these guys, and you're I guess scraping a living, right? I mean, when you left the newspaper. You left the straight job for running a publication. What was that like? You know,
It was feathers. It's chicken one day and feathers the next, and that was feathers in those days.
yeah,
It was hard.
right. And you know, and Sam's being kind of modest too, because I mean that the publication was very respected, but also his persona. And that's another reason to buy that book. The photographs, some of them that embarrass him, but they're super cool. I mean, this guy was a badass. He was the man in black. He had turquoise everywhere and a big bear claw belt, I believe, right? Was that bear claw belt? But I mean, and he was ornery as hell. But he was everywhere. I mean, I can remember you were always in a bar.
Bear claw belt buckle I had was a gift from Bunny Eckert.
You might have to explain who that is.
The bad boy of the bad boys.
You might want to go a little further on there. We're talking about Texas mafioso.
He disappeared and his body's never been found. But they think it's at the bottom of Canyon Lake. If it is, we'll probably see it pretty soon.
That is the rumor. That is the legend, right?
The drought is getting us.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, Sam, I'm serious. Talk about that transformation, because, you know, I guess we could have done a little slideshow too. I mean, you talk about a young guy, very buttoned up with a bow tie, if you can imagine him in a bow tie and a suit. Then it kind of became a little looser, and he gets a mustache, and it's a little more polyester. But then you go full Monty into the progressive country. I mean, you're in there all the way. How did that happen?
I don't know. I didn't think about that.
Okay. All right.
I guess I just started wearing what everybody else was wearing that I was hanging out with.
Right.
I wouldn't have looked too good with a polyester suit in some of those beer joints that we were going in and out of.
Now, your dad was named Grady, and you named your first son Grady. Grady helped you a lot with Action Magazine. Tell the story about how you introduced him to Leon Russell. I always liked that.
Well, Leon was Grady's hero, and that's before the world knew who Leon Russell was. I mean, before the world knew who Willie was. But I knew that Willie and Leon were friends. And when Willie had his first big picnic at the Dripping Springs, I knew ahead of time that he was going to have Leon as a guest. Of course, Leon was a superstar then, and my son worshipped him. I mean, his room was just decorated with Leon Russell stuff. So I tried to get Grady to go with me to Willie's picnic. And he said, that's just a bunch of redneck country stuff. I'm not interested in that. And I said, yeah, you come on, ride with me. And finally, he and his little brother got in the truck with me. And we got there the night before the thing, and I looked over there and I saw this mane of blonde hair, and they were sitting by a fire. And Willie was playing a guitar, and I knew it was Leon. He hadn't turned around. And we walked up there, and I told Willie ahead of time. I said, my son's been an anti-country music person, but he's going to meet Leon. He doesn't know it. And so I said, Grady, I want you to meet my friend Leon Russell. And Leon turned around, and I thought Grady was going to faint. And old Leon sticks his paw out and says, nice to meet you, Grady. I hope you enjoy the show tomorrow. Do I sound like Leon?
You do. Augie, talk about, too, I mean, you know, it's called Outlaw Country Reporter, and the focus of the book isn't only outlaw country. It's about a whole cast of characters, but that is such music so associated with Texas, you know, your Western headband. But when did you kind of return to that Tex-Mex vibe, you know, with Hey Baby ¿Qué pasó? I mean, you really, to me, that's like when the light bulb goes off for Doug and you guys, you know, that's like the beginning of where the Texas tornadoes are going to come out of. What's going on? I mean, had the outlaw progressive country thing run its course and you just needed something new, or how does that happen?
Well, I don't know. Before I married my wife, Sarah, I was going with this lady. She said, why do you play that Mexican music? I said, I like it. She says, I don't. I said, there's a door. So she left, and I wrote that night, Hey Baby ¿Qué pasó? I thought I was your only vato. And it became everybody said, a white boy playing accordion trying to play Mexican music, it ain't going to make it. And somehow it did. And I bought 1,000 albums, back in those days. And I just went to barbershops, service stations, all kind of other stores, and put 5 or 10. I said, sell them what you can. Call me if you need more. And they did. And it just went, and then Atlantic Records bought it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize really that it was a hit before it was a hit. I mean, if you lived anywhere in San Antonio region or in the Texas area, you were hearing it on radio all the time. Hey, baby, que paso? But that was, to me, sort of became at least a template, or the record company saw they could make some money. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, and then Doug Sam said, "Hey, I'm gonna buy me a Vato, a Vajo," and so he did, and we started playing Tex-Mex music, and then Warner Brothers called us. I was with Atlantic Records. I bought my contract back. I said, "Not with Jerry Wexler." I said, "It ain't gonna work," so I bought it back. I mean, I went to New York, and the people in the office had 40 pounds of jewelry in their nose, around their neck, and in their ears. I said, "I don't need this," so I bought my contract back, and I had to buy $17,000 worth of product they had in the warehouse. I went to the bank, mortgaged my car, got 17, paid Atlantic Records off, and 2 weeks later, Doug called me and said, "Warner Brothers wants us to start a super group." And I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Let's get Freddie Fender, and we'll get Flaco Jimenez." And we started the Texas Tornadoes, and we went to San Francisco, and in 2 days we sold I think 6,000 people a night arena out, and they said, "We'll buy you whatever y'all want," so they did, and we were with them for many years, and I think we did 5 albums with the Warner Brothers.
And that is a major shift, because I mean, Augie, going backwards a little bit in the past. I mean, in 1973, Doug Salmon Band, the record you were involved with Jerry Wexler, recording up in New York, and Shotgun Willie, and of course Jerry Jeff Walker's Viva Terlingua. I mean, those are representative albums. Those are quintessential Texas records. Texas Tornadoes were something different. I mean, it takes, if you're a musician, it's hard to have one career, much less a second life, much less a third life. So you've managed to do that. Sam, let me ask you, because one of the things in the book, and I think everyone here on this stage can relate to this too, is a redemption story. I mean, it is a story of your, coming out. It's a survivor story, because it could have turned out different. I mean, there's a chapter, or there's a tale in the book about when you took an innocent puff off a joint. So it was laced with something. You saw the devil. You still didn't stop. But without, in moderation, tell us a little bit about how low it got and then how you got out of it. That doesn't happen for everybody.
That was in Jackson, Michigan, and I was riding with Willie's band at the time. And this old lady got on the bus and passed this little pipe around. And me and Billy Cooper and one other guys were on the bus, and Willie was up on the stage. He was doing an afternoon show in Jackson, Michigan, and I took one puff off that pipe. I thought it was marijuana, and passed it on around. And I looked at Billy Cooper, and his eyes were big as banjos. He said, "It's the pipe, man." And it was pure angel dust. We locked Willie off the bus. It scared us to death, and I've never been scared my whole life. And I saw the devil that night. I mean, he had green pus coming out of his eyes. And we looked down, and there was a carnival going on at the bottom of the hill, and the concert was just about to wind up. Billy Cooper said, "If we can get something to eat in us, we might come down off of this stuff." I said, "Well, let me out the door, and I'll go down there and get some hot dogs." And I ran down that hill as fast as I could, bought a whole big sack of hot dogs, came back and got on the bus, and we started choking them down. And that's about all I remember. But that was the scariest thing that ever happened to me in my life. And B. Spears was.
That was the bassist for.
Yeah, he was a bass player, and he grabbed that old gal and rolled her down the hill. But
because what was the rule that Willie Nelson had for the bus? What we talking about with regard to drugs?
Willie didn't want hard drugs at all. He was strictly a marijuana man. He put signs up everywhere. If you're wired, you're fired. So we were all hiding from Willie too.
Sylvia, let me ask you. I mean, as you listen to these stories, and we're reminiscing, about Action Magazine. Does anything maybe come to mind, a particular gig or maybe a memory with regard to Sam Kindrick, or really just what it meant to you? I know your son Matt's a musician. I mean, it seems like it carried on, but did it mean something to get validated? He wrote about you a lot, photographed you. I mean, did it mean something for you to get noticed like that?
Oh yeah, it was everything for me, and I can't thank you enough, Sam. We were little fish. We're still little fish in a big pond. We always were, but we had such a great run, Cecil and I and Benny, and I was fortunate enough to right after high school to meet Claude Morgan and George Chambers and the best of the best. Right out of high school, 17, and I was able to play with all of them, and what a gift, and it's just we never hit the big time like these boys over here, but we adored them, and they came and sat in with us at Good Time Charlie's. Augie and everybody sat in with us at Good Time Charlie's, and always a pleasure to see Sam out in the audience, and I owe him a whole lot.
Let me ask Claude, because Claude has a good way of threading the needle and bringing a lot of things together, and there is a thread that, and Sylvia reminded me of it, with musicians, whether you're famous, not famous, wherever, there is a common thread, a common bond. I think Action Magazine kind of represents that, but maybe bring it home for us. What is that bond that ties musicians together? What is it that you think is that thing that just is almost spiritual?
Insanity, maybe. just a small bit of insanity and living, sort of just refusing to live the way everybody else was and wanting to do, your own thing. And can I fill in a gap here?
Yes.
About the Willie Nelson thing. Just before he started playing at Flora's Country Store, I had a band, and I was playing in Austin at this condominium. They had a bar in this condominium. I had a manager named Bill Tillman, and Bill Tillman told me, he says, I know this guy named Willie Nelson. This was like 72, maybe, something like that. He said, I know this guy named Willie Nelson, and I knew who Willie Nelson was, but only because of Patsy Cline and a few songs that he'd done. I had no idea who he was. He goes, he's fixing to move to Austin. He's not moving here yet, but he's okay, great. So we get this little gig, it's set-down gig at this condominium in this little bar, and we're playing there Tuesday through Sunday. It's Wednesday night, and there's no one there, no one. The bartender, me, my bass player, and Billy Lassiter on drums, and Bill Tillman. And Bill says, Willie's going to come down tonight. I go, Willie who? I forgot he even said. He said, Willie Nelson is coming. I go, okay. And so we're playing, and this guy comes walking in. No long hair, no tennis shoes. He was driving a Mercedes-Benz, but it was completely rusted out. Like the panels on the side were rusted out. And he comes walking in, and he sits down, and we play a song or so. And we take a little break, get introduced to him, and he says, do you mind if I play with y'all? My first thought was, I hope he can play. I don't know, but sure, yeah. So he gets up and he does most of the songs off of Shotgun Willie. He just does them in front of, just follow me, he says. Follow me. We ever tried to follow Willie Nelson on? He said, just hang on, it'd be all right, just follow me. And he started playing that song, and the drummer ain't, the singer ain't singing, and the drummer's been dragging too long. And every time he would say that, Billy would pick the tempo up a little bit. Finally, Willie stopped the song, goes, no, not just a verse in a song. You're doing fine. Just keep the tempo where it is. But because of that night, now we didn't know who he was, and he played like 8 or 9 songs off that album. We'd never heard the songs. We had no idea. Probably sounded terrible. But 2 weeks later, he calls Bill, and he goes, I'm starting to play at Flora's Country Store, and I want y'all to open for us one Saturday a month. And so we opened for Willie Nelson one Saturday a month for almost a year at Floor's Country Store. The very first gig we played with him there was maybe 25, 30 people there. It was in September. October, few more people. November, considerably more people. By December, the date that we had was so close to New Year's that he decided to do a New Year's show with Willie Nelson, the Buckboard Boogie Boys, and it was $5 at the door. And there was 1,000 people there. But Willie at the same time was playing at Armadillo World headquarters every Monday for free. And boy, that place was loaded with cowboy hats and girls in cut-off jeans and cowboy boots. It was just the most incredible thing. Anyway, so that's how I got tied into that, was that little part right there. But it's a wonderful thing that, and all that's really to do with Mr. Sam over here, you know, because he was the one who was pushing the ball. He was pushing the ball. He was talking to people and making sure their story got out. But if he hadn't have done it, nobody was chasing us around to.
Well, we're going to open it up for a couple, we're going to do a little musical finale in a minute, but we'll have a couple of Q&A questions. But I want to have Sam I want Sam to wrap it up here in a bow, Sam.
I want to say one thing. At the Warehouse Club, I did an article on a little kid band, and the lead singer was Hector, and his brother was with him, and they weren't even old enough to be in the joint. And they had a little band called the Crayolas. And if it wasn't for Hector Saldana, we wouldn't be sitting here now. There wouldn't be no book. There would be no Wittliff, be none of this stuff. This guy gets the credit for all of it.
Well, thank you. There would be
He's a hell of a musician, too.
There would be a Wittliff Collection. I think what Sam means is that he had a dream of putting this book together. It's his second book. He did a book while he was a journalist at the San Antonio Express-News. We're very proud to launch our music series with it. And, if you go into that back corner gallery, we have an exhibit called Viva Terlingua, the Big Bang of Texas Music. It's about a great record, a Texas record that's amazing by Jerry Jeff Walker and the Lost Gonzo Band that happened now 51 years ago, right? We're talking about 50 years. That's what we're talking about, Sam's stuff, that we've preserved it here. It's great to do these. It is great to have you here. It's great to wish you a happy birthday. But what's more important is that maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, if someone wants to find out what it was really, really like, they can come to the Sam Kindrick collection and find out through Action Magazine what it was about. And that's really what we're serving here at Texas State University and the Wittliff Collections, really. It goes beyond, someday there'll be another music curator, just like there'll be other archivists, there'll be other people at the university. But their goal and their mission will be the same thing, the preservation of the arts in Texas, to try to tell that story as accurately as you can, and to have the materials available to the public like yourselves. So with that, Sam, maybe any other last words about the book? How about something about getting it off your chest? Did it feel like you were getting it off your chest when you wrote this thing?
Somewhat, and then I can think about it so much that I left out. So much, but Hector, it couldn't have happened without you. You're the reason for the whole damn thing, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
We're honored. We're honored. It's our honor to do it, Sam. Let's not do it too long, but maybe is there a question maybe for Augie or Sam that you want to ask? We'd love to. Sure.
Sam, can you tell us a little about Bobby Thomas and
Oh, yeah.
you were talking about?
Yeah, maybe talk a little.
The Fair Brothers?
There's something about Bobby in the book, Kid Death. I was there the night that they shot Bobby and dragged him over there to the Baptist hospital. And somebody told me to go get over there to the emergency room, and I walked in the door, and there's Bobby laying there with blood all over the place. And he's talking about the guy that owned the nightclub where he got shot. And he said, I'm not going to use his name, but he said he barely could see. And he says, tell so-and-so that vengeance is mine.
I just want to mention, there's a guy here, Steve Laughlin's an old friend of mine. He owned Floor's Country Store.
Hey, Steve, thank you for all you did for music and supporting that. Maybe one more question here. Do you talk about KEXL in the book?
Yes, we got a deal on Kexel in the book.
Yeah.
There's also an entire chapter on the incredible Augie Meyers, too.
That was Ron Houston was on a DJ on that show too.
Yeah, if you can imagine Sam and Augie having their own shows on KEXL, which was the station there. It's unbelievable.
Now one night, talking about Kexel, Sam and me and Kinky Friedman were on the air. Well, the controls up there, you push it up, it cuts it off, but the control would go down. And my mother would call me because Kinky was saying some stuff, and I think he said the mayor's in town. He's at Luby's tonight in a white Cadillac. Well, the next day the mayor's car was all egged and everything, but my mother called me and said, "Junior, you're on the air. Watch what y'all saying." Because the knob, the toggle knob went down, and we were all there talking about the mayor. So we got in trouble the next day.
One more question, maybe. Anybody else want to ask something else? Yes. When's the next book, Sam? He keeps saying that. What's the next?
I've been thinking about that.
All right. One more question. What is Augie's book? Augie. When's that going to happen?
Pretty soon. I mean, every day somebody will tell me something. I said, "Oh, I forgot about that," and I'll write a paragraph down. And 2 days later, somebody says something. I'm still writing those paragraphs. I'm not through yet.
Okay. Well, we've got a little grand finale here. Sam, stay there. Augie, I'm going to get a chair for you. We've been planning on this. I may need a little help. Sylvia, I need to borrow
I want
this.
to recognize my daughter.
Borrow this. Yes, do it.
Patty and Gina.
Yeah. You can't come to the Wittliff Collections and not have the national anthem of Texas. Yeah. We got volume on them?
Testing 1, 2. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
This is a sad song I wrote way back in 1985 or 86. It was one of my wife's ran off with my best friend, and I miss him. One, two, three, four. Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Thought I was your only vato. Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó?
Audience participation allowed.
Won't you give me un beso? Come on, baby, turn around. Let me see your pretty blue eyes. Don't you know that I love you? And my corazón is real.
Everybody.
Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Thought I was your only vato. Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Won't you give me un beso? Play it, Claude. Turn around. Let me see your pretty brown eyes. Don't you know that I love you? And my corazón is real.
Con ganas.
Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Thought I was your only vato. Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Give me un beso. Play it there, man. paso. Thought I was your only vato. Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Won't you give me un beso?
Thank you all. Claude, can we figure out how to do happy birthday? Can you do a happy birthday? Just he'll fake it.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sam. You old cedar chopper. Happy birthday to you. May you live 1,000 years. May you drink 1,000,000 beers. Get plastered, you bad boy. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Claude. Thank you, Augie Meyers. Thank you, Sam Kindrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia Kirk. Thank you, Matt Kirk. Thank you, all our guests. Thank you.